So here are the top 10 questions from my Q&A sessions during 2019. I hope these help you with your preparation for OET, and I look forward to seeing you again for more Q&A sessions in 2020. How do I prepare in the 3 minutes before the beginning of the speaking test? Well, there's a few things that you can do, but obviously make the most of the whole of that 3 minutes. Take your time, read through the roll card a few times, underline keywords, perhaps how the patient is feeling, what their current condition is, and then read through each of the tasks in order to understand what it is that you need to do and what the patient might be likely to talk to you about during the conversation. Do I have to write the purpose of the letter in both the introduction and the conclusion? So the best way to complete the purpose criterion is to mention at the beginning of the letter the reason for writing. So in your introduction, it's really important that you explain from the beginning why you're writing this letter. But this can be quite a general explanation. It might be to say that the patient needs home visits, that you're referring the patient for some other kind of treatment. In the middle and the end of your letter, you need to expand on that. You need to provide more detail so that the reader can action the request that you're making. So you might, for example, say how many and how often the home visits should be, what kind of tests or what kind of care that the person needs to provide after the referral. Is it okay to start the letter with "I am writing to refer" or transfer? So there's not one perfect way to start the letter. The verbs refer and transfer is obviously talking about the type of letter that you're writing, but you won't necessarily use those verbs 100% of the time. There are other options that you can use. For example, I'm writing to request, I'm writing to update you about your patient, for example, or you could even be more direct. Mr. X needs an urgent admission for so-and-so. And you need to look at the case notes and the writing task to decide what kind of language is necessary to introduce and to make that reason for writing as clear as possible from the beginning. Is it okay to write more than 4 paragraphs? So there's no minimum or maximum limit to the number of paragraphs that you can write. The only decision that you need to make is how many paragraphs are needed to communicate the information that the reader needs to continue caring for the patient. How do I complete reading part A in 15 minutes? So when you're preparing for the test and getting familiar with the test content, I would actually advise you to complete a couple of reading part A practice tests in more than 15 minutes, perhaps 20 minutes at the beginning. And the benefit of doing this is that you become familiar with what the types of questions are and the strategies that you need to answer the questions correctly. Once you've built up that confidence that you can do really well in the test, then is the time to reduce the time limit down to the 15 minutes so that by test day you feel comfortable that you can answer all of the questions, the 20 questions within 15 minutes. In speaking, am I graded on my knowledge of the illness or on how I complete the tasks? So in the speaking test, and in fact in all parts of OET, you are not assessed at all on your medical knowledge. This is an English test. So you are being assessed on how well you communicate the information that the patient needs, the information you provide them, the way that you listen and respond to them. And you don't have to be accurate at all in your medical knowledge. In fact, if you're not very familiar with the condition on the roll card, you can invent details, and provided you give those details, that information in clear and accurate English, it doesn't matter if you discover later that those details weren't actually medically accurate. In listening part A, are spelling mistakes acceptable? So obviously in any part of the test, correct spelling is encouraged, but in listening part A, there may be some words or terms that you're less familiar with, and in the speed of the test, you're worrying about how to spell them. So the advice is to spell them phonetically, how they sound, and provided that the assessor can work out the word that you're trying to write, and that is the correct answer, you will get the mark for that question, even if the spelling isn't correct. Can I underline words in the reading and listening test booklets? Absolutely. Those test booklets are yours to use and to help you to answer the questions as accurately as you can. So before you listen or during the reading test time, you can underline or circle words in the questions or answer options. Just make sure that your final answer is shaded into the correct circle for the answer option that you've chosen. But other than that, the underlining and circling will be ignored by the computer assessing those parts of the test. In speaking, do I have to introduce myself? Not in every case. In fact, if it suggests on your roll card that you've met this patient before or you've been treating them for some time, it's actually quite inappropriate to introduce yourself, as it demonstrates to the assessor that you haven't understood the situation or the roll card. However, if the roll card suggests this is the first time that you're meeting the patient, then a brief introduction of who you are would be appropriate. Is there a word limit for answers in the reading and listening parts of the test? There isn't a set word limit for listening part A or reading part A. However, if you look at the official sample test on the OET website, you'll see that the answers are very short, usually 1, 2 or 3 words long, so you shouldn't expect to need to write very long answers. Remember, for reading part A, you're going to copy words exactly from the text as you find them, and for listening part A, you'll record the words that you hear on the audio. So those were the top 10 questions from our Q&A sessions in 2019. Looking forward to seeing you again in 2020, and look out for some exciting content from us to celebrate 2020 being the year of the nurse. For more videos like this, please visit our @official OET YouTube page, subscribe and see the great content in video format that we have there.